Hello friends, today we're going to be talking about Venus's ingress into the sign of Taurus, where this transit occurs on March 30th and it will continue until April 24th. And I must admit, I am happy to do this video because we've been covering some seriously crazy transits. But as usual, we will not keep it bubblegum. We're going to go through the light aspects of it and the dark aspects of it. And I want us to start here. Venus in the sign of Taurus is in its own domicile. That means this sign belongs to Venus. The other one is Libra. So this means the systems of attraction in our life, the way that we connect, the things that we value, how we come to harmonize things are functioning at their optimal level. So the things that we're drawn to make sense to us. The things that we choose to keep feels right to us. And the things that we use to build our lives can become stable, reliable, and enduring in this sign. And this is one of the most enduring signs of the zodiac. But like all placements, as I was saying, has its own shadows and its own problems. We have to come to a certain kind of maturity, power of discernment and understanding, not to fall into the pitfalls of the shadows of all placements, including this one. And the reason for it is that when we have a planet, let's say in its own sign, the system can operate so smoothly that we start to take certain things for granted. We stop questioning certain things. We just come to trust the process and follow through. Like as we grow older, certain things are not functional anymore in our lives. They used to have a purpose, but we have to change our ways. But we might continue without stopping to question things when we have a planet in its own sign, such as this one. So in this video, I want us to focus on both expressions of Venus in Taurus, when it's functional, when we're operating from a conscious level and the power of discernment is there, as well as when we're just moving forward unconsciously, which is going to bring out the shadows of this signature. We have to remember, for something to remain dignified, it requires us to always be conscious. And this lovely planet, Venus, is not exempt from this rule. Now, before getting to the depth of this video, I just want to let you know this was our last transit video for the month of March. Oh my God, so much happened in March. But we do have plenty of transits coming up in April, and I'll be making videos for those coming up. And if you want to catch those videos and more, please do remember to subscribe, press the notification bell so YouTube notifies you when those videos are released. And now let's get into the depth of this video. And I just want to do an overview of what Venus is like in the sign of Taurus. And I do want to say this, there are so many components to it, but I'm going to cast our gaze in a way that is relevant to the rest of the narrative of all the transits. So let's get into the first layer. So if we were to call Venus as a function of existence, it's the intelligence of connectivity of existence. And I don't mean, again, Mercury's connectivity where it just brings things to its proximity, but literally connect, lock in. So it's also saying or denoting something about our ability or our intelligence to recognize what is of value to us, the chemistry, the resonance. It's about the way we're drawn to things. So it's talking about relatability that goes far past Mercury. This is, I am so like you, you are so like me, that we can actually merge and connect. This is the function of Venus. And when Venus comes into the sign of Taurus, it comes to be not just about what we connect with, but it's determining what it is that we can keep. As I said earlier, this is a very enduring sign. It's about what we continue to return back to. It's about what we allow to become a part of our lives. So Venus in Taurus in a lot of ways is talking about continuity. So this signature is telling us how it is that we move beyond transient expressions. We're trying to bring a sense of permanence to things. And this sign, because it's an earth sign, is showing us how to make things real, tangible, how we can materialize it in the world. So essentially, it's also talking about what we need to do to be able to maintain things, to sustain them across time. This is another reason why this sign is so deeply connected to the notion of cultivation. And because it is a feminine sign, there's a lot of care coming out of this sign to be able to attend to something, to be able to grow it, cultivate it, and to keep it. Taurus is a very fertile sign. And this is also connecting itself to the fact that the sign of Taurus is a fixed sign. And that means whatever that enters here, whatever that gets integrated, incorporated, cultivated, it's not going to move out of there easily. Remember that function of Venus also here that merges things. It's really creating a binding kind of a feel to the sign. But the sign of Taurus, even by itself, because of that fixed nature of it, has a lot to do with stabilizing things, accumulating things. It has a lot of staying power. And I want you to think about it like this for a second. Let's put Taurus in the natural zodiac where Aries goes in the first house and then Taurus comes into the second house. In the first house, we're talking about an environment that is about emergence. This is where birth occurs. This is where you manifest, you come into existence itself. So potentiality is being expressed as something in the world that becomes part of his isness, for lack of a better phrasing right now. But this thing that emerges in the first house, in the sign of Aries, needs to be sustained. This is like a flame that just comes into existence. The first house is like the oxygen that sustains that fire. But now we got to give that fire something to consume so it can keep burning like wood. So the sign of Taurus and in the second house, it has a lot to do with creating a sense of stability so that something can be nourished, sustained, to keep that fire of emergence alive. So the sign of Taurus becomes something very foundational for something to keep maintaining its existence. And bringing again Venus into the sign, that power of attraction, that magnetism, and the merging process is saying that whatever that we're drawn to has also got this potential now that it becomes something that we depend on. It's something that we come to organize our life around it. And again, because Venus is in its own sign, there's no resistance or friction in the system. And that means whatever we come to perceive as valuable, whatever it is that we're attracted to, is allowed to fully enter our domain and our realm. And once when it's allowed in, it has a tendency to now hold on to it. Now, this becomes super important because this is the beauty of this sign. It's the mechanism that allows us to build stability. But we can also become very blind to the things that no longer sustain us, but we just keep holding on. So this transit is not just about enjoyment. I mean, the sign of Taurus is so misunderstood that sometimes it blows my mind. It's like just talking about pleasure and everything flower and pink. So it just becomes all about this hedonistic enjoyment, attraction and love. It has to do with every mechanism that allows us to live. And on its shadow side, the very mechanism that makes us hold on to things stubbornly at the detriment of life. And let's just move to that detrimental aspect of it because I'm going to cover the shadows first and then we'll go to the higher expression of displacement. So going back to what I said earlier, in the most neutral sense, displacement is pointing to what it is that we can do or what it is that we do that sustains our life. It's about understanding what's worth holding on to. But this capacity can misfire. And we have to turn into our psychology to see why this is. So when we think about how human beings generally think, when we experience something as valuable, as supportive, stabilizing, or life-giving, we don't relate to that thing lightly anymore. We come to organize ourselves and our life around it in a way that it creates dependency. We come to depend on it. And like any kind of dependency, the moment that is developed, we recruit the rest of our life to be organized around this dependency. And that's because when this happens, we're not just talking about a thing that has value to us. What becomes important in the psyche is how do I continue having this thing? To lose that thing becomes something very detrimental because we come under the impression that this thing that we value is upholding our life. It's supporting our life. So we do whatever we can to maintain that thing to make sure that it doesn't leave us or that it doesn't leave our life. And this is coming from that fixed nature of the sign when it's acting dysfunctional. So Taurus doesn't just hold things. It can also become very threatened when there's a disruption to the thing that it's holding, because this sign is very much concerned with maintaining things. And the things that it does want to maintain essentially is about harmony, beauty, relationships, its sense of fertility. These are the things that it values. When I say it values things, its values are also coming from the lens of Taurus. And the point here is when something is identified as a source of stability in this sign, the Taurian system within us will go to great lengths just to preserve it and to endure whatever that comes with it. And that goes even when things are being degraded, even when things that we value are actually harmful to us. So this is attachment, unhealthy attachment, replacing the things that are truly valuable being signified by this sign. And we also have to remember this sign, because it's fixed, it doesn't update itself frequently and naturally. So past values and the way that we organize our lives around it can become repetitive. They can have a sense of continuity without us really stopping to pause and to see why that is. And I want us to also keep in mind, what would Venus be perceiving or wanting to perceive? What is its mode of knowing? First of all, we have to remember that Venus represents the five senses. So it has very much to do with direct experience of things. It's about that feminine principle, the internal perception of taking the impression of something, some expression out in the world within the self. And Venus wants those experiences to be pleasurable, engaging, harmonious, beautiful. So when we have Venus in this sign, we can also have the sense that when something feels good, is automatically registered as something valuable. And we know that's not the case in real life. A lot of things feel good, but they're not good for us. We're talking about a particular kind of conditioning that permits us to have a very specific lens of reality. So we're going to come to just prioritize things that feel good and comfortable. We come to minimize the cost of such things. When this happens, it's almost like our mind can't perceive the whole truth. We can't see the full picture. Our mind is just prioritizing whatever that allows us to make contact with that thing that feels good, the thing that we've come to value. And the mind actually becomes preoccupied with, what do I need to do to have a continuation of this? So there's a bias in our perception. But this is an earth sign, so it's not going to stay just in the psychological realm. This sign wants to materialize what it is that we feel, what it is that we value. So it can show up as us remaining in relationships that in reality don't sustain us, or holding on to patterns that in reality have become very restrictive, or just holding on to all kinds of resources, but not out of love for them, not because we want to create some harmony here, but out of fear. So displacement, when it's dysfunctional, it can become very controlling. And it wants to control the variables so there are no disruptions to the comforts, to what one is attached to the things that we value. So it creates a kind of a rigidity in the system. And the crazy thing is, in a lot of systems, when a lot of pressure comes in, the system will loosen up. In Taurus, everything gets even tighter. I'm going to hold on to it even harder. And that's because perceptually, what's at stake is our sense of stability. So what might start for us to feel stabilized in our life can become our absolute source of immobility. This is why this sign is so synonymous with being stubborn, like a bull who has just put their hooves into the ground and just refused to move, even though they're going to be slaughtered any minute now. And this brings us to another point that's synonymous with this sign, which is greed. And this isn't greed of excess for its own sake. Again, is about creating continuity of what feels good, what's giving us a sense of stability, which again, if you think about it, behind this, it's also the insecurity paradigm, because it feels that it doesn't have enough, even though it might be living in a world of abundance. It continuously goes after gathering more and more. It needs to control what it has because it cannot deal with a sense of uncertainty. And you're in big trouble in life if you can't deal with a sense of uncertainty, because I don't care how well you've planned your life, you have no idea what's going to happen to you or your loved ones tomorrow. And with this whole greed aspect, there's a paradox here too. And that's because every time, if you pay attention, every time you try to hold something tighter in this life, you want to create absolute certainty. The less responsive that thing becomes to us. Like a perfect example of this is the love of Venus in relationships. The more that we try to control the other person, tell them this is how you ought to be, this is who you're supposed to be, this is what you're supposed to do for me, just control, 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 that person becomes less responsive to us over time. What we're supposed to actually do is understand how to harmonize ourselves with another person. That's Venus's best quality. This is how Venus represents peace, because we can create a sense of harmony. We don't control and then put another in a position to resist us. This is actually a misalignment of how reality works when you want cooperation and harmony. Like, if you truly want stability and security in this life, you have to know how to dance with other people and also to show other people how they can dance with you. You can't just overimpose and control. And again, if you think about it, we're becoming unyielding, let's say in our relationships, and we're restricting other people in order to preserve our sense of continuity. Again, that thing that we've come to value, that thing that makes us feel good. But to state the obvious, when we're talking about these shadow aspects, we're becoming an agent that's suffocating everything around us and suffocating ourselves. It's like taking that fire analogy that I was giving with the sign of Aries, that you got to give it some wood so that the fire continues burning. But you just got to give it the right amount of wood. If you pile a whole bunch of wood on top of a flame, you just extinguish it, you put it out. To understand the value of things, we also have to understand the measure of things, right? We have to understand what it means to bring certain things in, how much care to give to something so that we're life preserving. We're allowing that accumulative process of Taurus to be functional and healthy, letting the Venus within us to merge and connect with things that can actually augment our experiences in life. But when this placement's dysfunctional, it can hold on to familiarity and comfort at any cost, which is detrimental. And if you think about it, this is because the person or us during this transit, we want to avoid the flux around us. It's about, again, avoidance of uncertainty. This is our avoidance to not want to reevaluate the things that we have come to value in life. So if you think about everything that I said right now, when this placement's distorted, it's not losing its function. It's actually over-applying its qualities. Too much of a good thing. So it's sustaining things, but it's sustaining them beyond the relevance. During this transit, we have to understand something. That yes, it's good to have continuity of things. We all want that. We all want a sense of stability, certainty, which gives us a sense of control in life. But a higher understanding at this time is also about how to sustain ourselves through adaptability, which is the entire narrative of 2026. So this Venus right now going through the sign of Taurus is showing us where we have these fixations, where we feel stuck, but not out of pain, but out of the things that we become accustomed to, things that we have come to value and overvalue, and we have reconfigured our entire lives around it, and we just feel stuck because of it. We have to understand in this moment, if we refuse adaptation, continuity, that thing that the sign of Taurus wants, is going to start to decay from within. This is kind of like growing monocrops. You know, you have this patch of soil and you just keep growing banana trees, season after season, no crop rotation. You get degradation of that soil. Eventually, you can't grow anything on it anymore. This Venus going through the sign of Taurus, we're supposed to understand where we have these repetitions that are actually life-denying and how much we're trying to hold on to certain things while we're cutting the oxygen and the fuel out of every other facet of our lives. And that's why earlier I was saying this Venus is more reflective. We're supposed to understand these patterns within us right now. But now let's talk about the higher expression of this placement. And the higher expression is very high because we have Venus in its own sign. This is a very dignified Venus. I'm going to take a short break. I'll be like half a second for you guys. I'll be right back. I need some water. All right, I'm back. And you know what I noticed? I always have this noticing moments during these breaks, middle of the video. It's so hard to do monologues because while I'm sitting there, I have so many thoughts popping up and I'm just like, oh my God, why didn't I incorporate that into the video? But let us move on. The higher expressions. Okay, the higher expression of Venus in the sign of Taurus, it's not like it's dysfunction of just keep holding things. Because Venus represents the five senses and the intelligence of it. It knows when something is no longer working. It can evaluate and update what it is that it values over time. The same system that can create fixations can also become our capacity for precision. Because we can focus, we can stay with something. And the precision also requires constant contact. And that's what Venus as the five senses is about. Because what you perceive through your five senses is what's salient to you. It's what you can focus on. So during this transit is really worth asking, does this thing in my life still support me? Does this other thing still hold value in my life? What is its value? Why am I holding on to it? These things that I'm holding on to, these people, do they also continue to give something back? Because you can nourish someone. This is the feminine quality that's in this sign. This is its loyalty and its fidelity. It can constantly nourish other people. It can be their sense of continuation, but are they being provided for? Are they being nourished? This becomes a question with actually all the feminine signs and both of the feminine planets, Venus and Moon. It's worth asking, am I the only one that's just keeps sustaining everything? Or do the things around me, people around me, also do that for me? And such questions, in another way, they can help us or prevent us from rushing into crazy forms of attachments. Attachments that are based on lack and scarcity rather than attachments that are based on security. Like when this Venus is dysfunctional in the sign of Taurus, it has this tendency that it needs to prove its value to other people. But when it's functional, it has the sense of patience to evaluate the value of things and what itself is bringing to the table over time. It's not just assessing things based on whether things feel good or not. And if you think about it, if we can think this way, this changes the entire foundation of how we relate to different facets of our lives. This is going from the insecurity paradigm, the scarcity paradigm that creates attachments and fixations, which are super intense in this sign because it is an earth sign and a fixed sign. It becomes more about consistency. That's the moderation, like again, that fidelity and loyalty of the sign that can stay in something for a very long time. It doesn't become this super intense thing. It becomes about being consistent. And what I mean by that consistency is that we'll take a step back, we'll have the ability to sit and to evaluate whether the things and the people that we keep in our lives, are they people that we should return to over and over? Are they people and things that we can rely upon? And if I keep these things and people in my life, is it degrading my life or is it bringing a greater value to it? That consistency is forcing our perception to a place where things in this life have to prove their productivity. This is a very productive sign. It's a fertile sign. And if things and people can prove their productivity, that they're actually adding some sort of a value to our life, with this sign, we can integrate them into our lives in a way that is life-sustaining and life-generating. And there should be no doubt when a person with heavy-duty Taurus placements integrate something or someone in their life, especially with Venus there, the ruler of the sign, there's tremendous amount of fidelity and loyalty to it. They bring value when it's functional, but they're not so blinded by what it is that they need to bring. They understand this reciprocal nature, the feminine aspect of Venus here, that it has to be two ways. It understands that this is the way to accumulate what is of value in this life, what's worth accumulating. And this is a way to prevent that greed aspect, not to accumulate just for the sake of accumulation. Everything's being tested, everything's being refined, everything's being filtered through experience. And what that means is that everything's in a state of harmony. There's interconnectivity that is productive. And of course, because Venus is here, we are talking about enjoyment, but a healthy version of it. The higher expression of enjoyment is not something we use to override reality. Enjoyment is a feedback of reality. When our senses are in the right place, our mind is in the right place, when we enjoy something, it's giving us the signal of alignment, of harmony, that which is productive, that which is life-generating. Enjoyment is telling us that if something feels pleasurable, it's probably because it's sustaining you. And that is giving us the green light to now go ahead and integrate that thing into our life. It's saying that thing has enormous amount of value. It is worth your loyalty and your fidelity to it, your nurturance. You can cultivate it. And on the other hand, if something doesn't feel enjoyable, is just repetition, habituated, is degrading another part of our life with a functional Venus in Taurus, we know that that's a red flag. This thing is not bringing any value into our life, and in fact, is taking things away. So back off. This is not where you become loyal. So with the higher expression, there is the ability to enjoy without losing our ability to evaluate properly. And if you think about it, is this ability that also prevents us from overindulging. And that's because we're not just driven by immediate experience, where it's like, oh, this thing felt good, therefore it is good. When it's functional, we're constantly calibrating something in terms of, can this thing have a sense of continuity that's productive? Is this something that's useful and functional in my life? And productivity, I'm not talking about being busy. In the sign of Taurus, this is a very fertile sign. There's fertility, there's creativity here. And anyone who's a creative, you know that you need the right conditions for the mind to free itself, to start associating and connecting itself to different things, to be able to generate something new, to show up to something every day with love and to nourish it. These are the kinds of productivity I'm talking about. Like when this sign's functional, the commitment that can come out of this sign, because of the fixed nature of the sign, is not rigid. It's just our ability, because of that power of discernment that's coming out of here. We can stay with something because it has proven its value over time. When this placement is functional, we don't accumulate things and resources out of insecurity and fear. They're organized in a way to increase stability of life. We don't just control things. Like sign of Taurus can become very fixated on, let's say, controlling the body. It becomes about caring for the body, and through that care, that attention, attending to it every day for a long period of time, that care maintains the body and keeps it healthy. But just staying on this concept of care for a second, because the sign of Taurus is a feminine sign, Venus is of the feminine principle, we have the capacity to deeply understand the concept of care. Care itself becomes the medium that grows and sustains life. Care is what gives the sign its continuity, that willingness to show up day after day, to do what is required, to harmonize things, to make things beautiful. And this facet of care and the ability to show up is what gives the sign a sense of reliability. Reliability here is not just a personal trait, it is the embodied outcome of this sign when it's acting functional. It's the ability to make things endure. It's not just taken for granted that, oh, something's in the sign of Taurus, so that thing is enduring. When this sign is functional, we have coherence of this Taurian fields because there is tremendous amount of integration of everything in a very harmonious way. In general, when this sign with Venus in its own sign is functional, we get the concept of stewardship and stewardship of life's abundance, what is good in this life, what gives life value, what makes life productive, what brings harmony, beauty, fertility, creativity, fidelity, loyalty, all the qualities that as human beings we value. And now, before closing this video, I must say I am very surprised that I didn't mix up my W's and V's. I was just about to make a mistake right there. Because in Farsi, my accent sometimes comes out. Instead of saying Venus, I'll say Venus. But we did all right. And please do remember to subscribe, share, and like, and especially comment. I'd love to know what it is you feel is related to this transit of Venus in the sign of Taurus in terms of what you value. What's staying in your life out of habits, stubborn loyalty, things that just makes you feel comfortable, but you know it's time for those things to be reevaluated, updated. That Taurian fields of your soul needs to be reconfigured and rewired. Tell me what you feel is worth cultivating now at this point of life. And especially if you have this in your natal chart, please do let me know. I have this placement in my chart, and Venus is the most powerful planet in my chart. So I have familiarity with this, but I'd love to know how you guys are experiencing this because it manifests itself differently in everyone's lives, and we all have different birth charts. And talking about birth charts, if you want to understand your own and to understand the transits, to understand what this life's been about, why you've had the experiences that you've had, what was the purpose of it, and where it's all taking you, you can go to my website for more information at parisayazi.com, or you can go to the description box below. I have my email there for you. And also on the website, I upload articles so you guys can check that out and much more. And now to close. Because Venus is in its own sign, Venus becomes a condition. Whether the value of something remains in our lives or not is determining the degree of connectivity we have to that thing. It's talking about whether if that thing can take form and manifest in real life, whether if it can be sustained or not, whether it can continue through the times ahead. So with this transit, we're seeing something very fundamental about our lives. We're saying that it's not enough for something to just feel meaningful. That meaning has to be able to endure, and it needs to become productive to be able to sustain something. It has to be able to sustain the continuity of our lives. This Venus is not asking us just for connection and love, the stereotype significations for Venus. This Venus is asking us to reorganize our life around things that truly sustain us. And at the same time, it wants us to understand the things that we think it's sustaining us, but in reality, it's coming to be of detriment. It wants us to recognize the things that we're holding on to, things that stopped giving back and nourishing us a long time ago. This Venus right now wants us to understand, don't just assess something and give it a high value because it creates a comfortable feeling in you. Measure it based on the degree of enjoyment that it can bring across time. Don't just ask whether if you're sustaining something really well, but also ask, is that thing also sustaining me? There has to be that reciprocity, especially with Venus here. It's that reciprocity that creates stability. So the deeper question of this transit right now is not a question of what do you love? It's the question of what are you building your life around? And do those things still hold value in your life? And we have to understand whatever we hold on to in this life is something that we consistently return back to it. And that holding and that returning over and over, it's what comes to define our life, what our life was about. It's shaping our life. This Venus is showing us that to sustain something is not a neutral act. It requires you to give, to commit, to receive, to cultivate. And the highest goal of Venus in Taurus is to create a sense of harmony and beauty. And beauty itself is denoting health, because we're talking about the functionality of something that's life-preserving, life-generating, and life-augmenting. And on a side note, I wanted to make a separate video about this, but let me just mention something. The sign of Taurus has a lot to do with purity. I want you to think about the animal related to it, the bull, where its female counterpart is the cow. This animal is considered something sacred in the human civilization. It's what has allowed human civilization to become a civilization. Agriculture, for example. The other animal is horse, by the way. The horse in its female and male version, the cow in its male and female version is what has allowed humanity to become a civilization. That power of sustaining, growing, cultivating is very much related to this sign. And historically, we have sacrificed this animal to show our sense of purity and dedication to the gods. It is a deep sign. It is a super deep sign. Do not take this sign as like you have entered a candy shop that is just colorful and it's just so about food, and it goes on super, super deep. And I hope I find the time to create these kinds of videos, put these signs in some sort of a historical context too. There's a lot to be said. But now to end this video, I'd like to leave us with a wish that we recognize what truly sustains us and have the clarity to only keep what continues to give while releasing that which no longer holds value in our lives. And that's it for today. Sending you much love. Till next time.